whatever you want. Welcome, artists and creative souls. Thank you for joining me today. This lecture is called Creative Fire, Awakening to the Vision Within, with me, Laura Castellanos Dab. So, how many of you are creatives and people who go by the spirit of creativity and innovation? That's what I felt, that's what I thought, that's why you're here. As creatives and visionaries, people who can see within the mind's eye, we know that the idea starts with a vision, it starts with an idea within the mind's eye. And we think of this idea as a sacred seed of a word. That is planted in the divine book of the mind. And there's another very important component to the creative fire and innovation that happens in general, is this feeling of the hearth, the fire of the center of the home, place where the warmth and life exists. And when we look at the body, we see our body as a temple, as our house, as our architecture. And in that space of the body, we are always looking at the creative fire within, to inspire and create life within and without, as artists and creative souls who imagine and then create what we imagine, what we see, and make it into reality. Because as above, so below, as the ancients taught. And it's the law that governs all creation. I'm a professional astrologer, toy inventor, painter, medium, and I live in the world of creative. And one thing that I've learned and understood is that understanding the maps of the sky help us understand how we live as humans here below. And we have so many mythologies and so many different aspects that rule our lives. But what does this have to do with creativity? What does that have to do with innovation? What does that have to do with the creative fire within? Well, if we look at the fact that everything is the stars because the stars are us, and that we, our ancient ancestors, always knew this, and we begin to look at things as a synastry, a whole picture, not one little thing at a time. And we can look throughout history at the Renaissance men who studied everything, the holistic concept of synastry, the ancients who built the pyramids and the architecture, they knew this. They understood that in order to truly go within and transform and create the most amazing visions into manifestation, we have to understand that the architecture of the body, the architecture of a building, and the architecture of the stars is all made of the same stuff and the same kind of blueprint. And that's why in the tarot deck, the Wheel of Fortune is a wheel, because it's the astrological native wheel of life. It is the blueprint, the soul blueprint, that makes us each an individual soul on this plane. And when we look at the natal chart of astrology, we all have our unique blueprints where the stars and the planets went through the soul when traveled until it came here on Earth. And we decided what we were going to create, because we're all artists and we're all creators, because God is an artist and He created us. She created us. So when we look at the astrological wheel, we want to look at one house, the fifth house, ruled by Leo, the sun. Because this rules the childhood and the creative womb, and happiness, joy, leisure, everything that makes us feel like a child. And this is also a huge component in every single thing we ever see in astrology, and also in the ancient structures of Egypt and other architectures of megalithic types. So when we look at our inner world, when we go within and we go into the micro, below, we are the below. We want to go within ourselves, and within ourselves, there's those two aspects. We have the sun, but we also have the night. We have the death. And then we begin to see that there's the moon and the sun, the stars and the sun, night and day, life and death. The womb is both life and death. The creative process is both life and death. And everything starts in the creative sketchbook of the mind. We sketch with our mind before we put anything on paper, before we write anything. We sketch it all in our mind. The more we do that, the more we practice this, the more we manifest thought forms. Manifesting thought forms is a creative process of first building out of clay with your mind's eye. And that is why the ancients who created the Pyramid of Giza, for example, or the 7 gates, 7 keys, temples in Karnak and Luxor, which are some of the 2 focus architectural points that I want to focus on this ritual today, is aligning to rituals for creativity. So these masters use their creativity to connect to the divine. Architecture is used to create the 5th house. So the pyramid is not only aligned to the stars, it is a diagram of the human journey from incarnation through transformation into awakened consciousness. So this is just, as a painter, I am a channel and a medium, and these beings come to me, and it's always been this for me, my personal journey. But here I just have one of my paintings as an example of how in the pyramids, this is something that I came up with after meditating in the pyramids, the beings that come to me from that experience, is how when we understand the symbolic diagram of initiation, we have 3 types. We have the death, we have the heart, and then we have the crown, the rebirth in the pyramid, because we have 3 chambers. We have the chamber of Osiris, we have the chamber of Isis, and then we have the king's chamber, Horus's chamber. And so there's initiation when you go there. When you start at the bottom, it's going into the reptilian aspect of ourselves. We're slithering like snakes down through a tunnel system, and our body has to begin to feel like a snake's body, almost. And when you visit this temple in Egypt, a lot of times they'll tell you not to do Osiris's lower level chamber because it's too difficult. But I highly recommend you start there, if and when you go to this lovely piece of architecture, which is an ascension chamber for creative force and quantum science, in my opinion. And then you crawl your way up to the 2nd level of the chambers, and that is the Queen's chamber, where we initiate a different animal, and that is the lion. The lion is associated with the sun, but it is a different type of sun. It's the alchemy of the chest, so it'd be the midpoint of the body. And you're crawling on all 4s like a lion to get to this chamber. And a lot of people wonder and question, as archaeologists and architects, why was the chamber designed that way? Why was it designed so that it was so difficult to get to these different rooms and in such different ways? I believe it's because they knew the transformation. There's an aspect of complete and total transformation that happens at the quantum molecular structure. And when we look at creative processes and that everything is in our mind, what makes us any different as artists than any great master of consciousness once we master our own desires within and put them on paper in our mind's eye. And so when you finally make your way up to the king's chamber, you have to go up a really, really high incline. You're climbing and climbing and climbing, and a lot of people can't make it up. But this is for a reason, because at this point you become the falcon, you become Horus, who sees all, who transcends through the crown, and that is with the intention to become and transform into this animal through your own molecular structure. And the chamber and the entryway to the king's chamber is wide and low, just like a soaring falcon would, to get inside, which has a magical acoustic chamber within. Still no one can really fathom how this structure was made. And in the middle there's a sarcophagus. And when you get into the sarcophagus and you start to chant in certain low frequency tones, your whole body begins to vibrate and realign at a quantum molecular vibrational level. Because the ancient masters knew that it is body, mind, spirit that realigns and allows us to have a baby death. That life, rebirth, baby death comes from re-shifting of the molecular structure, and that is the rebirth phase. And once we have this rebirth, we are the falcon. We see everything from above. We can see the whole picture around us. And as artists, we create the vision. We manifest it in physical form, in the 3D reality, from all the different dimensional, higher frequency realities that we can travel to outside of time and space with our consciousness. So we are all creators. And the sun is not just light, it is earned radiance. So we have to go through the death life cycle. We have to go through Hades and the underworld. We have to go through Osiris first before we go to have a new life, a new rebirth. And before we can have fun, we have to understand what is death and what is Hades. Who is Hades? And we have to face a lot of challenges when we go into the underworld. And if you're not ready to face those challenges, then you're not ready for your next stage in being a creator and being a visionary for your own self, for your own growth, for your own alchemy. And every time we rebirth something, a part of us had to die first in order for that to have life within. It is the cycle of life. We have to release in order to, again, receive something new. And so we have to allow something, that death phase, to accept that pain as part of life.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Those who don't make it through the process, what happens to them? Do they have to come back or what?
I think we're always coming back. I think we're always in a state of a sacred spiral. That's my personal opinion, that we're always connected, but we're also always living in the identity of ourself, but also how that identity is part of the one.
And eventually, do you cease the window of birth and death? And eventually, I'm up in years, and I don't know how many years I have left. So I guess this matters.
Yes, exactly, because when we face that transition, when we're facing that part of our wheel, we're always going through the life-death wheel process, and yes, in our life, then as humanity, we pass on to the next phase, what lies for us in the underworld. Well, what lies for us in the underworld is everything we weren't able to face in this reality. So if you faced all of your shadow selves, and then you're ready to see, you're already alchemized. But if you haven't faced all of that, then when you meet Ma'at, the ancient Egyptian goddess who weighs your heart next to a feather, and Anubis allows you passage over to the boat, the river Styx. She first has to weigh your heart, and if it's heavier than a feather, you're stuck here until you figure it out, until you can get past that. It's gateways, and it's a map, a star map through the interdimensional realms that we that exists beyond this conscious physical world. Did I answer your question at all? Sort of. I might not have the answer, you know? That's the other thing is we all want answers. And Eva actually told me something today. She said, we already have the answers within us. And so you would know better than me. So it's also about letting go of the identity, letting go of our individuality, and seeing that there's a part of us that really just needs to be one with everything. And then we really also can absorb the chamber of the fire of the secrets within that even more, because it's almost like a gift every time we remember and we let go. And we initiate ourselves through the darkness to find the sun and Osiris, the god of death. And so when we have death, we have to let go of who we blame, who we look at, who's stopping us from having fun. You know, I mean, the fifth house is all about having fun and giving birth to life. So Leo is all about the identity, the solar life, the individual. So it really is actually about how we are unique, a unique blueprint, and how our star map is unique, even though we are actually unified in one. How is that possible? What is that paradox, that dichotomy between the individual and the oneness? And we find our individual ego death every time we go into the underworld. And Dante spoke of that in Inferno, his book about Hades and the underworld. And the medieval writers were all looking into astrology and working with the stars, because the stars were where we had the answers and where we looked to for where we're going. The inner realm is the workshop. And we learn through the death-life process that way. We build them in our minds first, like we said. And quantum manifestation, interchangeable realities in the quantum field of the mind. And then we see the same thing in the Seven Gates, Seven Keys temple in Luxor in Egypt. Another incredible temple that is about the death. Why were the Egyptians so obsessed with death rituals? Why? Every single stellar alignment and astrological alignments are Orion, the star system of where they believed they would go into the afterlife. And Sirius, the God world. There's many reasons why. We're probably not alone. We're probably from the stars. But in the mind as the seven gates, we have this very interesting sculpture carved into the wall in one of these ancient temples. And it's a portal to seven gates. And what were we talking about? We were talking about how the astrological wheel has 12 gates and how 7 of them are the 7 gates of hell. And you see how the ancients always were looking for that death, that good, sweet death, to get you to the sun. And so, again, we take the first house, the second house, the third house, the fourth house, and the fifth house, sixth house, seventh house of death to merge back into the world. The initiations. Stripping of the illusion. Sometimes through our greatest pain that we find our greatest inspirations. Here's another example of what the architecture does in the ancient temples of, this one is in Dendara in Luxor, is the ancient chamber of the goddess of fertility, Hathor. And they have these incredible pockets of windows in the architecture created to let pockets of solar and stellar light shine upon the individuals in ritual, because the actual light, solar and stellar, activates our DNA and our quantum molecular field. Every single thing in these buildings are filled with carvings and artwork by the best artists of their time and scholars and priests and priestesses. Every aspect of it had vibration and frequency aligned to the stars. And when we begin to look at our own lives this way, we take back some of the wisdom and the knowledge that has been lost to us by the ancient world. We can see that we can regain a lot of our lost creativity this way, and begin to learn how these pyramid bodies, the architectural body is the temple, these terms that we've always heard, where they come from. Because this pyramid is a portal. And so here are some pictures how we go down through the base chamber, and you're going slithering down, 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 you get lower, lower, lower. And the Queen's Chamber here, you see they blocked it out. It's very interesting, a gateway, entryway to more tunnel systems that we're not allowed to go into, and who knows what's in there. Supposedly nothing. But there's obviously a whole other world of tunnel systems that go down into the pyramid that I have a lot of philosophies on, that maybe we're not alone, and maybe it allows us to go into different realms. But within that, even if these tunnel systems lead us to Hollow Earth or any of these realms that are different than the realm of Earth that we know here on the crust, it also allows us to meet a different aspect of ourselves, right? It's an initiation. And this is the King's Chamber. You see, this room is very acoustically sound, and in the very back is the sarcophagus, which when you get inside, you know, talking about living forever, they really did believe they could live forever. So healing by micro vibrations activated by sound in the Great Chamber. Here's a painting I did right after I finished it right after I came back from the King's Chamber, or right before. It's about getting in the flow, getting in the zone. And here is a really cool picture of the base level of the pyramid in the Osiris's chamber. You could see that there's an actual hole with a gate around that leads into another tunnel system. This is some of my artwork inspired by the deities and people. But anyway, that's the end of the lecture part of it, but I'd like to open it up to any questions or go back to any of the slides if anybody has any questions or anything else they'd like to share. Yes?
So on your second and third slide, they had a lot of text, and you're talking about the different systems that you synthesize within yourself in order to get a kind of creative worldview that you operate in. Is that yes? Wait, no, not that one. Sorry.
This one.
This one. Yes. And I was wondering if you could talk about. So, was that like an accurate summary that's about coming up with an internal?
Yes.
How much do you share that with people in the context of you presenting your art? So I know obviously this is a lecture, so it's kind of about your system.
Yes.
But when you're presenting the paintings themselves, how much do you forefront the system that you're using versus not?
I think that is a very individual question as an artist. Because art is very subjective and also private, and also we ourselves as artistic channels don't even know why we come up with the ideas and who's working through us at the time. And you may not even know the answer to your own artwork until for 20 years later, and then, oh my God, that timeline finally came into fruition. And so it's really about having faith and trusting your creative intuition, and believing in your own spirit journey. And I definitely think that you should embrace it as much as possible as an artist and reflecting that in your work, because that's what makes it special and what it sets it apart from everything else, because every painting is a portal. Every piece of architecture, every book that's ever written is a portal to some place, music, everything that is created by art is a portal to something. So the more intention we have, the more feeling we have, the more we meditate, the more we explore our quantum vibrational fields and get more and more awakened, the more our art's going to be a portal for everyone around us. So you should definitely take that and try to understand and synthesize it as much as possible into your narrative process with your artwork and share it, because I think that's how you will serve the people the most with your creative fire, is by being your unique self.
So do you, because, so that doesn't make sense with, like, with your practice, talking about how you put it into the work.
Yes.
I'm talking about outside of the work, and in your practice, how
Mhm.
much do you present the system outside?
I think the system's always working. It's all about it's a synthesization, that's the word, of your consciousness. And it's the more you shift your consciousness level, the more everything around you just changes, right? And it's so simple, it's Occam's razor, but it's really, that's just it. It's like the more you live it, the more you send that out, the more it's all in your mind first, right? It's in the sketchbook is in here. So if the sketchbook is in here, you don't even need to be putting it on paper, right? You can create it so solidly in your mind, in 3D in your mind. You can manifest that thought form, that it goes out in a vibrational, energetic, dimensional field, and no one even has to know that you're working in that, changing it, creating art everywhere you go. Does that make sense? Does that help? Okay, thanks. Thank you. Yes?
Yeah, I had a question. In your description, it talked about dreams as portals to creativity. Could you
Yes.
speak to that?
Yes. Being connected to the field, being connected as a spiritual medium as we are as artists, and accepting that's our role in life, is we are receivers. We receive more truth in our dreams than in our waking life. And dreams are both the dreams that we have when we sleep and the subconscious coming out to share things about our lives that we aren't aware of. The spirit world, for example, or ancestors that come through in the dream time. And weaving that within our life. For example, for me, my artwork is considered pop surrealism, which is, surrealism is a term for dreamlike. And it's really about going into that flow of the dream state, even in waking life as well. So the concept of the dream is what you make it, right? We are living a dream right now. And so it's what we want to see as our consciousness. And so our artwork is a snippet of a moment in space and time for us in a consciousness field. But we're also dreaming in the dream time in ways that we could never possibly think of when we're awake. It comes up with crazy things, and then when you find out the meanings of these things, it solves all your problems that you haven't been wanting to see in your life. And so the more we have that language with our subconscious conscious, and that's a big part of being an artist, I think, is being interpreters in the world for everybody, to understand how the two aspects of the brain, the left aspect and the right aspect of the brain, coexist. And when I highly recommend you begin your dream journey and start to paint or write or play, or whatever it is that you do as a creative, build a space for yourself that reflects that.
Hi, I kind of been journaling a lot of dreams and doing artwork for about 55 years, and I noticed since the doctor put me on a different medication, and my dreams have taken on a much more surreal character, like horses galloping through the bathroom and things like that. And I'm wondering if there's a significance to that, or is that just the pill talking?
I think that everything has a charge to the individual in a unique way. And so just because it's happening to you like this doesn't mean that it happens to everybody that way. That's just how I think about pills or meds, right? But if you look at the interpretation of a horse, for example, it means it's right. But then you look at these symbols, and then all of a sudden you're sketching it out, you're writing it out, you're pulling ideas out of it, you're writing a song, you're weaving together a whole new project based off of your dream, right? And it's almost like it percolates in your body, and that's how, when you know, as a psychic, as a medium, as an artist, as any type of creative, we feel it in our body first, right? There's this sense of it, and it percolates in us, and that's how we know that it's there. You've got a good idea, right? And so, and it's the same with a dream that keeps coming up in your mind over and over again, or you wake up in the morning with a song. That's not just a coincidence. Your subconscious wants you to know something. It wants you to pick up on something. And as artists, we're always trying to receive information for the subconscious realm, because that is where we're connected to the field and where we get the true, honest answers. Thanks. Yes.
I just want to say a comment in regards to that. I took care of hospice clients after the death of, they passed. And a lot of them, they talk about horses. And so look at the horses.
Wow.
And the horses above, you see the curtains, and above, you see they're running the horses, and it's horses. But then at some point, they turn into also the light. Now
Wow.
we're talking about the light. And many times, like 90% of the time, at least they said, I want to go home. When they say I want to go home, we already know how close they are.
Wow.
But you see the process.
The process.
The horses,
Yes.
the light.
Yes.
This is not my home.
Yes.
I want to go home.
Yes.
And they said, no, this is your home. This is not my home. I just want to go home. And that's it. It's like this connection is happening, and connection is happening.
Yes.
So that's the way I see it. It's a process. I've been doing this for 14 years. I know.
And you're clearly an intuitive.
I just heard so many of those things, and well, yes, but what I'm saying is a coincidence. Is it a coincidence, or is it really happening this way? Horses, light.
Yes.
This
Yes.
is not my home. I wanna go home.
Yes. Synchronicity, and as Jung would always say, there's no such thing as these synchronicities or coincidences. Everything is at the field and the collective. And so the more we pull on those synchronicities and coincidences, they start to have a pattern, like you were saying. And the more we see these patterns, the more we can figure out what's coming next. And to be forewarned is to be forearmed. But not just that, but we start to change what comes in the future, the more we put those intentions and pay attention to the patterns around us. And of course, that's why we get seen in the archetype of insane or very close to creative schizophrenic, where, picking up patterns and, drawing things. So it's very interesting how creatives can be very easily put into a, demonized or put into a category of not being able to be trusted in the world of facts. But actually, just like the two sides of the brain, they both coexist. We can't be lobotomized and just have the left side or the right side. We need both in order to really understand the conscious world and the unconscious world. So for as much as they may push us away for having these abilities to understand the non-relative science, right? We work in quantum. Artists are working in the quantum. We're not working in gravitational, formulaic, 4 + 4 = 8. No. If I order a blue drink at the bar, I might get a red drink. That's quantum. You don't really know what exactly you're going to get. That's why when you asked about art, you didn't know what you might come up with, right? Because that's quantum. And that's one thing artists understand more than anyone else, is that we're working in a scientific realm, but they just haven't realized what that science is yet. you know, and we hold on for the good fight as artists because we know there's something more. And science will catch up to us sooner or later, but that doesn't mean we stop our artistic journeys and manifesting and creating life through the quantum. And one day they'll have measurements and tools to say, hey, they had a point there, and you know, that's why they did these processes that we already knew existed all along. Okay, I've got 10 minutes. Any more questions? All right, you guys, thank you so much for coming, and have a great expo. Thank you.
Okay, so there's no video here, but I can bring mine. I just want to check the technology. Thank you. Yeah. You might want to mention that. Take care.
Cyrus chamber.
Yes.
So the site, that was the sweater that confuses the AI.